A massive welcome to all the C9 followers tuning in right now across our podcast and the business page.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us today.
If you're a regular, you know we focus on deconstructing the actual mechanics of what drives enterprise growth. I am Lex, and it's great to have you with us.
And I am Vera, coming to you right now from the C9 podcast show. We've got a really highly focused deep dive for you today.
We really do.
And we want to establish our parameters right up front. This conversation is specifically tailored for Australian business owners and C-level executives.
Exactly. So if you are sitting on a board or you're steering the operations of an Australian enterprise, this is basically the strategic briefing you need regarding your tech investments this year.
It's mandatory listening at this point.
It really is. So let's just jump straight into the source material because there is a statistic here that it perfectly captures the tension in the boardroom right now.
Oh, the investment gap.
Yes, the investment gap. According to the data, here in 2026, 67% of Australian CEOs plan to invest in AI.
Which is the clear majority.
Right. But here's the massive disconnect. Only 28% of those exact same executives actually believe their investment will be sufficient to meet their strategic goals.
That is just a staggering gap.
I mean, more than 2/3 are authorizing the budget, but less than a third actually have any confidence in the strategy behind it.
And it perfectly illustrates the core problem in the market right now. The entire conversation around AI investment in Australia is just broken.
Completely misaligned.
Right. Executives are walking into these planning meetings and they're asking a very singular, isolated question.
They ask, what does it cost?
Exactly. What does a tech cost? But this guide we're looking at argues that is entirely the wrong starting point.
So what should they be asking?
Well, the real questions need to focus on the full picture. The implementation, the operational risks of a poor deployment, and crucially, and people forget this, the competitive cost of delaying your decision while you wait for perfect clarity.
Which brings us to the actual mission of today's deep dive. We are unpacking a remarkably transparent 2026 guide published by C9.
It's titled Investing in AI, a strategic guide to Australian costs.
Right. And we need to establish the macroeconomic stakes before we get into the micro budgeting of it all.
The broader context is essential here.
It is. The Australian AI market is projected to grow at a compound annual rate of 36.7%.
That's massive.
Hitting $80.15 billion by 2033. And government modeling suggests AI could add up to $142 billion annually to Australia's GDP by 2030.
So for you listening right now, this is no longer an experimental tech trend.
Not at all. It is a ticking competitive clock.
Precisely. And the guide notes that over a third of Australian businesses are already utilizing or trialing AI, with another 23% planning implementation within 12 months.
So the window for any sort of early adopter advantage is rapidly closing.
It is. Which means we really have to examine the real price tag. Not the vendor marketing materials, but the actual structural costs of building these systems.
Let's start with the baseline numbers then, because they are notoriously difficult to pin down.
They really are.
You often hear that AI implementation in Australia sits anywhere from $70,000 to over $700,000.
Right.
Which, from an executive planning perspective, a range that wide is virtually useless.
It tells you nothing.
It's the equivalent of asking a commercial developer what a new facility will cost. And they tell you, well, it'll be somewhere between the price of a demountable office and a high-rise tower.
It requires contextual breakdown.
Exactly.
And the authors of the guide address this by breaking that massive range down into distinct functional project tiers.
Let's go through those.
So the first tier is the discovery and strategy phase. This is essentially the architectural blueprinting for a business just beginning its integration.
How long does that typically take?
It usually takes 2 to 4 weeks, and it requires an investment of roughly $15,000 to $40,000.
Okay, so that's the blueprint. What's next?
From there, you step up to the proof of concept, or the MVP phase, the minimum viable product.
Right.
This is highly recommended for SMEs wanting to validate a specific use case to prove the concept actually works in their specific environment before authorizing a full rollout.
What's the cost on that?
That phase runs 6 to 12 weeks, costing anywhere between $40,000 and $120,000.
But let me play devil's advocate here for a second. An MVP is really just a testing ground, right?
Yes, it is.
It proves the math, but it doesn't necessarily integrate seamlessly into the daily operations of, say, a 1,000-person company.
Yeah.
When we move to full deployment, how do those figures scale?
They scale significantly. which leads to the third tier, the mid-scale bespoke system. This is aimed at businesses deploying defined, high-value automated workflows. You're looking at 3 to 6 months of development and an investment of $120,000 to $350,000.
Got it.
And finally, for large-scale enterprises with really complex, multi-departmental requirements.
Where the AI is touching finance, HR, and supply chain all simultaneously.
Exactly. You move into the enterprise custom platform tier. That requires 6 to 14 months of engineering and costs anywhere from $350,000 to well over $700,000.
That's a serious capital commitment.
It is. And across all of these tiers, the guide emphasizes the need to factor in ongoing optimization, which runs roughly $2,000 to $8,000 a month.
Now, looking at those figures, I can easily see a CFO who has been browsing global developer rates online, just balking at this.
Oh, absolutely. The immediate question is always, why are we paying these rates when offshore development is a fraction of the cost?
It's the classic outsourcing debate.
Yes. But the guide addresses that specific talent reality. The figures we just outlined reflect local Australian AI engineering talent.
Right, where salaries are highly competitive.
Exactly. Ranging from $85,000 for entry-level developers to over $200,000 for senior data scientists.
But why not just offshore it?
Because there's this persistent illusion that offshoring will neatly have the budget. But those lower estimates almost universally exclude the hyper-specific integration, compliance, and governance architecture that Australian businesses are legally required to maintain.
That makes a lot of sense.
We will get into the regulatory side shortly, but the short answer is that cheap initial code often results in systems that just cannot legally be deployed in Australia.
Which actually tracks perfectly with one of the most revealing sections of this guide.
The hidden budget killers.
Yes. The assumption is always that buying the underlying AI model, the intelligence itself, is the primary expense.
It's really not.
Not at all. The guide outlines 5 hidden budget killers where these projects actually derail. The technology itself is really just the engine.
Yes. And the first hidden cost, and arguably the most disruptive to project timelines, is data preparation and engineering.
This one blew my mind.
Industry research shows that 60 to 80% of an AI project's lifecycle is spent entirely on preparing the data, long before the AI model is even trained.
60 to 80%. That percentage is staggering.
It is.
To visualize what that actually means for an established enterprise, think about trying to deploy a state-of-the-art high-speed bullet train.
Okay.
But then you realize your infrastructure consists entirely of dirt tracks.
That's a great way to put it.
You have 20-year-old databases, you have systems patched together through random corporate acquisitions over the years, siloed information that has never been standardized.
It's a mess.
You literally have to pay to build the steel tracks before that multi-million-dollar train can move an inch.
Exactly. And once those tracks are finally laid, you hit the second budget killer.
Which?
System integration.
Right.
AI systems do not operate in a vacuum. To extract any real ROI, the AI has to communicate with your enterprise resource planning software, your CRM systems, your billing and inventory platforms.
And that's not exactly plug and play.
Not at all. The guide points out this is frequently the most complex phase. You are forcing a cutting-edge 2026 AI to shake hands with legacy software that might completely lack modern connection protocols, or APIs.
And I imagine generic vendors don't usually include that in their initial quote.
Rarely. It
Yeah.
is almost never fully costed in their initial pitch.
Which naturally leads to the third hidden cost, cloud infrastructure.
Yes.
Because once the data is clean and the systems are actually talking to each other, where does this thing actually live?
You need serious computing power.
And this is not a one-off capital expenditure. Cloud compute costs, and this isn't just for training the AI initially, but for what the industry calls inference.
The actual day-to-day processing.
Exactly, generating answers and completing tasks.
Yep.
That runs between $12,000 and $60,000 annually.
It is a persistent operational cost that must be modeled for the full life cycle of the asset.
And then there's the human element.
The fourth hidden cost. And this is one that often blindsides executives who are purely focused on the technical deployment. Change management.
Oh, this is huge.
Gartner released a benchmark showing that AI projects with structured change management programs are 6 times more likely to hit their adoption targets.
6 times. That's not a marginal difference.
If you radically alter how your staff processes invoices, but you don't properly train them on the new workflow, they will inevitably revert to their old manual spreadsheets.
People hate change.
They do. So the guide suggests you must budget 10 to 15% of the total project costs strictly for human training, process updates, and adoption support.
And finally, the fifth budget killer, ongoing maintenance.
A very common misconception is that AI is just a set-and-forget technology.
Like buying a microwave.
Right. But models degrade over time as business conditions and incoming data change. It's a phenomenon known as concept drift.
So what's the financial impact of that drift?
You need to budget 15 to 25% of the original build cost annually. That covers model retraining, performance monitoring, and compliance reviews.
Which pivots us perfectly to the Australian regulatory environment, because the guide places heavy emphasis on what it calls the compliance trap.
Yes, and the regulatory landscape here is stringent.
Very.
Back in December 2025, the government released the National AI Plan, setting a very rigid framework for safe, responsible adoption.
And they put money behind it, too.
They did. They backed this with a $17 million Responsible AI Adopt program to ensure businesses deploy these systems with robust governance.
And it is so vital for you listening to understand that these regulations are not just broad, sweeping suggestions.
No, it is a highly specific alphabet soup of sector rules.
Let's break some of those down.
Sure, if you're in finance or superannuation, you are answering directly to APRA. If you are deploying clinical or health tech AI, you have AHPRA and the My Health Record Act dictating your data handling.
ASIC oversees how AI is used in responsible lending and customer-facing decisions.
Exactly. And overarching all of this is the Privacy Act of 1988, dictating really strict terms on personal data processing.
The guide argues that the operational and legal risks of treating these regulations as an afterthought are severe.
Beyond severe.
If a board approves the deployment of an AI system without compliance architecture inherently built in, they are creating direct legal exposure for the directors themselves.
Because retrofitting compliance after a system is already deployed is a complete logistical nightmare.
You essentially have to tear the house down to fix the foundation.
Right. It requires dismantling the operational logic of the AI, which is consistently more expensive and disruptive than just engineering it correctly the first time.
This is actually a major differentiator highlighted in the source material. The authors state that C9's methodology relies on building compliance architecture into the absolute foundation of every solution.
Privacy by design.
Exactly. Privacy by design, data flows, explainability layers.
That explainability layer is critical.
It is, because if APRA or ASIC audits your company, you cannot just shrug and say, well, the AI made the decision.
They will not accept that.
No. You need an ironclad audit trail that explains exactly how the algorithm reached its conclusion. The guide frames this as completely non-negotiable.
So if we accept these hidden costs in this really strict compliance landscape, we arrive at the primary hurdle for the C-suite.
Framing the return on investment to secure board approval.
Exactly. Executives are obviously comfortable calculating traditional ROI. But the guide suggests that the gap between intention and confidence, the one we noted at the top of the discussion, exists because AI ROI is uniquely difficult to quantify if you don't capture those hidden integration costs.
You cannot walk into a boardroom and simply pitch the technological capabilities of a new AI model. They don't care.
They really don't.
You have to quantify the financial bleeding of the current operational state. You define the exact cost of the manual labor, the human error rates, and the process bottlenecks happening right now.
And the guide provides a highly practical scenario to illustrate this perfectly.
Let's walk through it.
They look at a typical SME. Imagine an operations division with 8 administrative roles dedicated purely to manual data entry and reconciliation.
Okay, so factoring in base salaries, overhead, and superannuation, that function costs roughly $720,000 a year.
Right. The proposed solution is a bespoke AI workflow automation system designed specifically to handle that document processing.
And the total build cost for that AI intervention?
$85,000.
Okay, so we have an $85,000 capital expenditure. How does the guide model the return on that?
By analyzing the time saved, the model projects a net operational reduction of $310,000 annually.
Wow.
When you run those numbers, the payback period for that initial $85,000 investment is just 4 months.
That completely changes the boardroom conversation.
And
you are no longer debating the abstract philosophical value of artificial intelligence. You are asking the board if they are willing to allocate $85,000 to permanently remove $310,000 from the annual operating expenses.
it's a no-brainer when you frame it like that.
But let me push back on that scenario for a minute, because It assumes a bespoke build.
It does.
A lot of executives will look at that and say, why spend 4 months building a custom workflow when I can just buy licenses for an off-the-shelf generic AI platform today? It deploys faster, doesn't it?
It might deploy faster initially, but the guide breaks down the 5-year math on generic versus bespoke systems, and the difference in total cost of ownership is striking.
Walk us through the generic platform costs.
Generic AI platforms for a mid-size enterprise typically cost between $50,000 and $300,000 every single year in subscription licensing.
Every year.
Yes. Over a 5-year horizon, that is an operational drain of $250,000 to $1.5 million. And crucially, you still have to pay for the internal integration to make it work with your specific data anyway.
That's rough. Compare that to the math on a bespoke system.
If you invest $250,000 in a custom build and allocate $30,000 a year in ongoing support and cloud compute, your total cost over 5 years is $400,000.
So it's vastly more capital efficient over the long run.
Vastly. But beyond the raw math, there is a strategic imperative here. With a bespoke system, you own the intellectual property.
There's a fundamental distinction. It shifts the AI from being this perpetual rented operational expense to a capitalized asset on your own balance sheet.
Exactly.
You avoid vendor lock-in entirely. You aren't at the mercy of some software giant arbitrarily raising their subscription fees by 20% next quarter.
And the guide reinforces this point by quoting Kevin Burrows, the CEO of PwC Australia, from early 2026.
What did it say?
He noted that while the AI opportunity is massive, Australia risks falling behind purely on execution.
Right.
He argued that organizations treating AI as a proprietary growth engine will permanently free up operational resources. That allows them to redeploy human capital toward high-level, revenue-generating strategic thinking.
And if the goal is to maximize the financial efficiency of building a proprietary asset like that, we really need to discuss what the guide calls the ultimate financial lever.
Oh, the tax incentive.
Yes. For Australian enterprises, this is arguably the most critical yet underutilized advantage available, the research and development tax incentive.
It is a profound lever. The Australian government's R&D tax incentive is specifically designed to reward companies taking technical risks.
How does it break down?
It provides a 43.5% refundable tax offset for eligible companies with an annual aggregated turnover under $20 million.
And for the bigger players?
For larger entities exceeding $20 million in turnover, it shifts to a 38.5% non-refundable offset to significantly reduce their tax burden.
And this applies to AI.
Yes. The guide clarifies that custom AI software development like engineering novel algorithms to solve specific integration challenges or experimental data structuring frequently qualifies as eligible R&D activity.
Let's slow down and walk through the tangible math on this, because the impact on the risk profile is just immense.
It really is.
Suppose your enterprise commissions a bespoke AI project, and the total eligible build cost is $300,000.
Okay.
If your turnover is under $20 million, that 43.5% offset means the government could return $130,500 to you as a literal cash refund.
Which is incredible.
Your net investment drops from $300,000 to under $170,000.
And if we apply the ROI logic from earlier, say that system sees you $300,000 annually in operational efficiencies,
Right.
over a 3-year period, your net return on that subsidized investment exceeds $700,000.
It dramatically accelerates the payback period.
It absolutely does.
But there is a catch regarding compliance with the ATO, correct?
Yes, there is. The guide notes the government has allocated $39.9 million over 5 years strictly to support AI policy and capability, which indicates strong federal support for this.
But they want receipts.
They want rigorous, contemporaneous documentation to prove the R&D actually took place. The guide explicitly states that C9's approach is to structure all project documentation, hypothesis testing, and architectural blueprints from day one to meet these strict ATO evidentiary standards.
Because you cannot successfully audit a project if you try to fake the experimental paperwork retroactively.
It just won't work. The ATO will see right through it.
So synthesizing all of this data for our listeners, the hidden costs, the compliance requirements, the ROI math, and these massive tax incentives, how does an executive listening right now actually formulate a strategy for 2026?
The authors distill their methodology into 4 pillars of a sound AI investment. This acts as a really clear blueprint for the C-suite.
Let's hear them.
Pillar 1. Define the problem with a quantified cost. You have to establish your ROI baseline before you even look at technology.
You too.
Assess your data readiness first. If your data environment is fragmented, your initial capital must go toward data infrastructure, not advanced modeling.
The bullet train on dirt tracks.
Exactly. Pillar 3. Embed compliance from day one. Treat APRA, ASIC, and Privacy Act regulations as core design requirements, not just post-deployment legal reviews.
And the final pillar.
Pillar 4. Insist on a total cost of ownership model. Demand transparent, fixed-price proposals from your vendors that actually account for integration, cloud compute, and change management.
And the broader market data suggests the urgency to execute on these 4 pillars cannot be overstated.
Not at all.
Currently, 49% of Australian business leaders are actively increasing their investment in technology upgrades. According to the data, it is the only major capital investment category showing year-over-year growth.
That says a lot.
Furthermore, SMEs that successfully integrate AI are projected to see productivity growth 22% faster than larger, slower-moving firms by the end of the decade.
So the opportunity cost of hesitation is severe.
It really is.
Every month, an enterprise delays its decision-making process is competitive ground permanently ceded to rivals. If you are stuck paying escalating licensing fees for generic platforms, you are just draining your operational budget.
And if you are trapped in that endless cycle of stalled pilot programs without ever hitting full deployment, you're bleeding capital without realizing any operational returns.
2026 is rapidly becoming the demarcation line that will define the competitive landscape for the next 5 years.
So to summarize the core takeaways from the material for you, the listener, the true cost of AI implementation is absolutely calculable, provided you accurately account for data preparation and system integration.
Yes.
Bespoke, custom-built solutions deliver a significantly superior long-term ROI, and they secure vital IP ownership for your balance sheet. And finally, leveraging the R&D tax incentive is an absolute game-changer for mitigating your initial capital risk.
But the guide's ultimate conclusion is that executing this level of complex integration requires a highly specialized partner. You need developers who operate with complete transparency regarding total costs and regulatory adherence.
Which brings us to the recommended next steps. As the guide details, C9 is Australia's leading custom software, apps, integration, and database developer company.
They really are the experts in this space.
They have the local engineering talent to build not just the AI engine, but the compliant infrastructure required to run it legally and effectively in the Australian market.
We highly encourage you to take action on this intelligence. You can book a complimentary, no-obligation scoping workshop directly with C9.
Bring your highest cost operational bottleneck to the table.
Yes, bring it to them. They will provide a transparent, fixed-price assessment of your data readiness and map out the exact architecture your specific use case requires.
To arrange that briefing, head over to their website right now. Visit www.c9.com.au. That is www.c9.com.au.
Make sure you check that out.
And before we sign off, please ensure you click that follow button on our page and share this deep dive with other business owners, board members, and executives in your network who really need to understand the true mechanics of these investments.
And we will leave you with a final strategic thought to evaluate. Think about your most aggressive competitor right now.
Keep them in your mind.
If they're already utilizing that 43.5% R&D tax offset to build a proprietary, fully compliant AI asset that permanently lowers their baseline operating costs.
While your enterprise is still absorbing monthly subscription fee hikes for generic software.
Exactly. How exactly do you plan to compete with their pricing models next year?